Good morning, folks. The real Captain Kirk here, live from Weather Trends 360 studio here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Obviously, today we're going to be talking about the tropics. There's several systems to worry about and your two-week outlook. As we look at the timing of landfalling type events here, Thursday, obviously, we have major Hurricane Florence. Thursday would be the landfalling time frame roughly in North Carolina. In the Caribbean, Windward, Leeward Islands, we're going to have Hurricane Isaac, Cat 1. Again, some minimal impact, not a huge storm like last year's parade of systems, but again, that'd be the Thursday time frame as well. And out in the Pacific, we got Hurricane Olivia heading through to Hawaii. It'll downgrade to a strong tropical storm as it goes through, but that's more in the Tuesday, Wednesday time frame this week. So 3 landfalls here this week to be worried about. If we look at the current satellite here this morning, we can see Hurricane Florence is exploding pretty rapidly. It was a major hurricane down to a tropical storm and now back to a major hurricane. And it will intensify as it goes through these extremely warm waters off the East Coast, well above average, especially as it gets toward the Gulf Stream, as it gets closer to the U.S. Isaac, again, is going to make a beeline through the middle of the Leeward Windward Islands, and Helene curving out to sea. Also got to watch that blob out there in the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico. Maybe something out there. The models are pretty tight. The good news is we're a few days out, so they start to get pretty tight. But again, that's a pretty good consensus of really from the landfall from the Wilmington, North Carolina to maybe Morehead City, maybe as far as Cape Hatteras. But again, right now, Wilmington to the Morehead City looks to be the most likely landfall based on the current model tracks. A couple outliers, but those look like they're impossible based on, we'll show here the overall pattern, why these recurvings don't look likely at this stage. At landfall, the models all suggest a Cat 3 to a Cat 4. It also suggests here prior to landfall, again, well off the coast, but it could become, one model does show a Cat 5. If it did become a Cat 5, it would be the furthest north Cat 5 in history. Camille was the previous furthest north Cat 5, 1969. That was down near New Orleans, so this is much further north to have something this strong. So this is definitely on the par of the Hugos back in '89. I remember driving through there on my way to MacDill Air Force Base, so devastation. So this is definitely on a scale of a Hugo, if not even more so. Jump ahead here, this is the NOAA type products, again showing the probability is about 90% certain here at this point that it's going to hit the North Carolina area. Timing, again, the NOAA products Thursday morning, starting to see the tropical storm force winds. The problem here with Florence is that we just have this big blocking high pressure up here, you know, in Canada, and it just has no right turn. Hurricanes like to make this right turn, and it just can't because you got this big blocking high up here. The high here this morning, you know, brought in we were 44 degrees this morning, so it's freezing cold. So you have this very strong high, and it's just not going to allow Florence to make its move. Now, this is a neat product from CIRA, Emergency Management Group. I've always pointed out this concave bay configuration. This is just a very dangerous configuration to have because water will pile up and it has nowhere to go. It just gets stuck in this concave bay configuration. So this is the current model. This will obviously change a bit, but right now, with the pretty high confidence that Florence is going to hit toward, this is Wilmington, Morehead City, and obviously Cape Hatteras out here. This is showing a 10 to 14 foot tidal surge, storm surge. That's not waves, that's simply the water lifting up 10 to 14 feet off of its normal surface. So that's the storm surge, if you will, on the right side of the hurricane. What's interesting, if you look down here on the south, I always say this, the right front quadrant is the most devastating. The southern part of the hurricane, to the left of the eye, you're only talking about a 4-foot surge. So 4 to 14 feet, huge difference. So if you're right of this eye, that's why it's most devastating if you're on that right side front quadrant. So again, Hurricane Center official forecast is showing 142 mile per hour winds, again, gusting up in the 160, 170. So again, on a scale of a Hugo for sure, based on the current guidance. On top of that, you have waves. So on top of that 10 to 14 foot surge, you could have 20 to 30 foot waves. So you do the math, you know, 20 plus 14, you can have 30, 40 feet of water, if you will, coming on shore. Obviously, the further inland you go, quickly that dissipates. But again, it's certainly going to impact, you know, a mile or so inland with all these, you know, barrier islands. So we can see, again, these big waves heading right for the North Carolina area as we head toward Thursday. Jump ahead here. The concerning factor is that the soil moisture is just saturated. We have the remnants of Gordon that went through the southeast and then curved and just recently going through here in the east. So our ground is saturated up here in Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia. Again, it's about as high as you can get, 45% soil moisture. In the Virginia, North Carolina area, again, it's more of a sandy soil. So again, they don't retain the water that much, but they've been very wet, obviously. So their soil moisture is concerning that you're going to bring all this rain on top of pretty saturated. It's not that dry. Now, if it hit way down here, that's a little drier down in South Carolina. But again, the likely track is in here. The concern is the models. The models, again, kind of in consensus, but a little bit crazy on the locations. USGFS has a max rainfall of 55 inches, somewhere in this Virginia, North Carolina area. Where exactly, it's hard to say. Euro's about 48 inches for max, 4 feet of rainfall. Western North Carolina, Southwest Virginia, and the Canadian's about 30 inches in eastern North Carolina. So 30 to 55 inches might be the max rainfall total we would see here on top of pretty wet soil. So that's major flooding on wherever this thing ultimately, whether it's in the eastern part of the states or the western part of North Carolina, Virginia, but certainly very much concern there. If we look at kind of the spring, summer to rainfall to date across the country, again, you see this big blob here where we're obviously just way above average in Virginia, Pennsylvania, a little bit in parts of eastern North Carolina. Cape Hatteras has been extremely wet. So Virginia, spring to date, about, again, the second wettest in history. North Carolina, about the third wettest. So bringing in all this heavy rain on an already, really wet season is pretty devastating. Looking at the storm tracks here, again, over the next 14 days, we can see first one here is Florence going toward North Carolina, Isaac going through the Caribbean, Helene curving out here. They might actually get something else forming up in here, might get something forming over here, and then we got Olivia out in the Pacific. So there's 5-6 systems here. You can see the big cold blast coming here through the northwest to start, and then it invades the east next week. We're already really cold here today. It's 44 degrees, so we're going to warm up a bit. Thank goodness. It felt like fall this morning for sure here in Pennsylvania. So again, you see the big blob of colder weather, kind of typical sign of fall to come here. As we jump ahead real quick here, just summarize this in the 2-week outlook. Again, seasonably cool here, cold in the northwest. Next week, really cold, pretty much eastern half of the country, below normal. Next year is actually the coldest in 6 years. Next week is the coldest in 6 years and the wettest in 30 years. So again, a lot of fall and stormy type weather here. With that, again, check out weathertrends360.com. We have a lot of cool maps and features, and we'll keep you updated as best we can here on these hurricane activity. So with that, folks, be safe and have a great week.